Well, the percentage of foreign-born in the United States is the highest it's been in a century, maybe ever. It's hard exactly to know, but it's still rising in any case. 67 million Americans, more than 1 in 5, speak a language other than English at home. Pretty much everyone in Washington is fine with that, number rising. Some of them want the U.S. to completely open its borders to the rest of the world. But what would the effect be if we did that? Who is coming here? What are they like? And where's all of this going? If you look at these numbers, we are joined by Steven Camarota, Director of Research at the Center for Immigration Studies. He joins us tonight. Steven, just the first obvious observation. People, when I was a kid, used to care about overpopulation. I guess nobody does anymore?
Yeah, that's a fair question. The latest Census Bureau numbers indicate that immigration by 2060 will add 75 million people to the U.S. population. So you'd think people concerned about the environment or traffic pollution, congestion, sprawl would think about that.
Well, but those are real concerns, which I will admit as a kid, I mocked the liberals for having, but as I get older, I realize you don't want to live in a crowded place. Everyone's unhappy. It's horrible, and it's dirty. So does anyone on the left still say that?
There are a few progressives out there. You may know the organization Numbers USA. They have a lot of progressive support, and they tend to focus a lot on the population growth. But most mainstream people on the left don't touch it with a 10-foot pole because it's all, in the United States, about 95% of population growth long-term is new immigrants and the children they have, and so they don't want to touch the issue anymore.
Wait, what percentage of population growth?
About 95%. Between now and 2060, about 95% of the increase in the U.S. population will come from future immigrants and the children and grandchildren they'll have.
So that's almost a complete turnover in population, basically.
No, that's population growth. That's about 75 million people.
Okay.
So most of all the increase is coming from immigration. So from about 328 to 404 is about where we're headed, something like that.
So the language numbers are really interesting to me. 1 in 5 people living in this country does not speak English at home. Has it ever been that high?
It's hard to say, but it may have been that high in the past. What's even more interesting, or perhaps more troubling, is how concentrated it is. So there are all kinds of areas where the Census Bureau divides the country into various areas where 95% of the people, or 85% of the people, and 95 and 85% of the people in schools, kids in schools, speak a foreign language at home. That's what's truly extraordinary. One wonders how assimilation can work with that level of immigration and foreign language concentration.
So what are, broadly speaking, the education levels of the immigrants who are coming here?
It varies enormously.
Of course it does.
So, you're looking at a situation where 80% plus of immigrants from India come with a college degree or more, and then for, say, immigrants from Central America, it's less than 10% come with a college degree. And the same thing for immigrants.
So how does that break down? So what percentage of our immigrants are coming with no education versus those coming with high degrees of education?
Yeah, right now, somewhat over a fourth of all immigrants have less than a high school education when they come. A little over a fourth also have no more than a high school education. So a high school education or less is a little over half, and then a little less than half is some college or even college and more. So that's the very rough breakdown.
So the majority have high school education or less?
Or less, right. So no education beyond high school. And we know from a lot of research that their welfare use and poverty is quite high.
Of course, across the board. Steven Camarota, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Well, you just heard, as millions of people, many of them low-skilled, half continue to enter this country, an obvious question arises. What does that mean for our economy, for America's working class, which is already having its jobs phased out by automation, but for a lot of other parts of our society? Oren Cass is a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, author of the book The Once and Future Worker, A Vision for the Renewal of Work in America. A thoughtful look at that question. He joins us tonight. Oren, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Tucker.
So there's a debate over what automation is going to do long term. Everyone seems agreed that it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs that we currently think of as real jobs. They'll be gone. But is there any scenario in the future as we perceive it now where you'd want more than half of all immigrants to have a high school diploma or less?
I think that's a concern we have to grapple with. If we already feel like we have an imbalance, too many unskilled workers relative to what the economy wants, adding more unskilled workers to that mix pushes us in the wrong direction.
How concerned are you about that?
I think it's a concern. I think it's one among many. I think there are a lot of things we're doing that really hurt less skilled workers. The way we approach immigration, the way we approach education. I mean, we don't care about education for less skilled workers. We say college for all, and if you don't complete college, you fell out somewhere along the way. And all of our money goes to the folks who are actually completing college, even though they're the ones who need the least help.
So why wouldn't you, if you were thinking thoughtfully about who to let, if you started with the presumption that some immigration is good, that's where I start anyway, why wouldn't you be thoughtful about letting in more people who already have the education that you think your economy requires?
I think that's exactly what we should do. And I think, most economists would look at the issue and say, if you want to benefit workers at the bottom, if you want to benefit their wages, pretty much the models say high-skilled immigration is good for low-skilled workers. More low-skilled immigration, it can't be good for low-skilled workers. You're just adding more competition to the market.
I've had this debate 100 times on this show over the past couple of years, and I often hear people say, all the studies show that's not true. Bringing in millions more poor people makes us all richer. Is there such a study that shows that?
I'm not aware of a study that shows that. There are a lot of studies that show that the mix of immigrants we've had over time, which has been low-skilled and high-skilled, it's reflected roughly what's in the population.
Right.
And so that's okay. But that's the wrong question to ask. The question to ask is which would be better? Given that we're going to have high-skilled immigration, is it good to also have a lot of low-skilled immigration, or is it good to have less low-skilled immigration? And what you would say is the less low-skilled immigration you have, the better things are going to be for the low-skilled workers who are here.
So I sort of allotted over the meat of your book, which is what would you, if you could do one thing to help people who are struggling to reap the benefits of our economy, what would it be?
Well, I think conceptually we have to actually value work, and we have to say it's not just about consumption and how much we all get to consume and how cheap stuff is. We actually have to realize that people having work is what's most important to them. And then
well, wait a second. Paying everybody off with $3,000 a month won't be the answer?
No, it's a disaster. It's a great answer for the folks who are doing really well. The funny thing is, the higher up the income ladder you go, the more people say, oh, not everyone needs a job. People, we can send them money. You go down to the bottom end of the ladder, that's where you find the people who say, no, we don't just want money, we want the jobs, because they understand how critical work is, not just to their own satisfaction, their own lives, to their families, to their communities. And if we don't focus on that, if we just say, oh, we'll grow the pie, what they say, and
right.
we'll just send everyone a piece, right? You don't have to bake your own pie, we'll just give you a slice. That's not what people want, and that's not a model for a good society.
That used to be really obvious.
It did, until about the middle of the last century. And then we flipped and we said, as long as consumption keeps going up, as long as everyone can have more stuff every year, we're going to call that success. But that's not success.
Brightly colored crap made in China will make us happy. Did it?
I don't see a lot of that, no.
I don't either. Oren Cass, really thoughtful. Thank you for that.
Thanks for having me.